Ashera is known today as the consort of the Sumerian god Anu and Ugaritic god El. When the religion of Yahweh rose, his followers destroyed all of her shrines to his command, so as to maintain the purity of his worship. She was the mother goddess of Canaan or Canaan. We already know that the Hebrew Bible, as well as any other Bible, shows a distortive gender imbalance. But let's dissect some words and meanings from the original Hebrew story. God ordered all who worshipped Ashera to be burned and destroyed by his anger and fury. When she was destroyed, the polytheistic religion, believing in many gods, of the Israelites turned to the monotheism, which is a religion of believing in one God. In fact, the word for God in Hebrew, Elohim, is in plural. It actually means many gods. But people today, even in the religious world, that are using this word daily, do not notice this. That is how asleep humans can be. והשבית את הכמרים אשר נתנו מלכי יהודה, ויקטר בבמות בערי יהודה, ומסיבי ירושלים. ואת המקטרים לבעל, לשמש, ולירח ולמזלות, ולכל צבא השמיים. The Baal, sun and moon, and the mazalot, which refers to the astrological signs in the sky, describe the many gods of the Canaan consul in the sky. The husband of Ashera was El Elyon, translated into the upper or highest God, and then was replaced by Yahweh, Yehovah, a god of destruction, retribution, and revenge. People still believe him to be a god of love and peace, but you only need to read the Bible to know this is not true. A few books in the Bible blame the goddess Ashera and the goddess worship to bring the wrath of and anger of Yahweh, Yehovah, and the destruction of the people of Israel. We can see how these stories have ingrained this idea in humanity that the woman is to blame for the sins of man. How manipulative and evil this idea is that we can clearly see even in our society until this day. In Hebrew, words can be dissected and coded with each letter and the word itself. So in Ashera, we can see the word Esh, which means fire. Also Asher, which is the root word for happiness. And the final letter, He, which refers to God or source itself. Ashera was said to be the mother of Baal, but some say she is his counterpart. And Baal is a god which today is worshipped through demonic evil blood sacrifice. The word Baal literally means in Hebrew husband. It is a word used by millions today to refer to their husbands. The modern word for wife, Isha, which has the same root of Asherah. If we dissect the words for man and woman, Ish, Isha, we can see that they are the same, but the woman has the added hey at the end, which means she has the added energy of godliness, of holiness, which the man obviously does not have within the coding of the word. Amazing how all the wise scholars of Judaism didn't notice this huge but in-your-face detail, but they can sit for years and dissect everything else in the Torah and the scholastic books, everything that suits them, that suits the dark masculine word in society, making up laws and rules in the Jewish world for women and men to follow that have no respect for the actual holiness of women, of the goddess. The word Israel, El means God in Hebrew. Yeshar means aligned, straight. So Israel literally means the one who is aligned or straight with God, with source. Ashera was worshipped within the household, and her ritual offerings were performed by women of the house. As the women of Jerusalem attested, when we burned incense to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings to her, did not our husbands know that we were making cakes impressed with her image and pouring out drink offerings to her? Jeremiah 44:19. Archaeological excavations, in fact, show many findings of altar spaces in Hebrew homes and hundreds of female pillar base figurines that have been discovered. Jezebel brought hundreds of prophets for Baal and Asherah with her into the Israelite court, meaning that both the god and the goddess were worshipped and honored. Later on, when Yahweh, Yehovah's image, was in control of men's minds, the image of Baal became also blasphemous, but is always mentioned and still worshipped today as the Antichrist image. The shadow side of the masculine, as so many who worship Baal today even perform horrific blood sacrifice under his name. But the name of Asherah has been forgotten. Our culture, since the rising of Yahweh, Yehovah, defines the ancient Asherah worshipping and Canaanite rituals as sexual fertility cults, painting them as evil, while they themselves worship the most evil images of the dark masculine and perform the most demonic acts of cruelty under his name. Asherah was Baal's mother in the mythology and Yahweh her husband. But where is she? We see the image of the Father God as well as the demonic evil masculine God and Son, but where is the image of the loving, embracing, nurturing mother? We can see even in our pop culture today the destruction of the image of the good, kind, loving, nurturing mother. We see that in many Disney movies, Hollywood movies, stories, and in our society today. This society has been destroying the entire pregnancy time and experience and the connection between mother and child. But this is for another video. In time, as this culture often has been doing, goddess spiritual paths have been graphically associated with prostitution. As Jeremiah wrote, "On every high hill and under every spreading tree you lay down as a prostitute." Jeremiah 2:20. Hosea, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel in particular blame the goddess religions for making Yahweh jealous and angry, and explain his jealousy as the reason that Yahweh obeyed and the destruction of Jerusalem and the most sacred temple and trees of the goddess. Sacred sexual rites, which were taught from the time of the temple, as the sisters show me, sisters of the temple of Isis and Lilith, typically revolved obviously around women, for they are the keepers of the ancient knowledge and the womb wisdom. They are the keepers of the true knowledge of sacred sexuality and sacred union, and this as well has been hidden from us for too long. Let's look at the second story of creation, where man was created from the earth and the woman from his rib, and because of this he shall rule her from now. I mean, how ridiculous is this? Even as a fairy tale, it is so illogical, and yet people have believed this blindly for so long. This story is, in my view, the first really powerful propaganda tool to control the masses, and it has done a fine job at that. Don't you think? This shows us how powerful stories are and how much they can affect the human psyche. This is why I bring my knowledge through stories as well, because it is easier for humans to understand the truth. This story, which is in fact the second story of creation, which doesn't include Lilith herself, which was in the first story of creation, the true one, started a spiritual and mental war of fear and manipulation. fear of God who punishes your sins, fear of the snake, and fear of being the woman who is seen as the snake in your community, fear of men who control women and will decide our fate, and fear of ourselves and our own power and nature, which we always must suppress and hide, fear of our own sexuality and freedom. Of course, both men and women in this story were shamed for their nature. Adam and Eve punished for their naked bodies and their desire to enjoy the fruits that the mighty God put there for them. I mean, what cruel God makes two creatures in a beautiful garden but forbids them to touch and play? Why would you put a tree there if they cannot eat from it? And how on earth again does a woman come from a man's rib? When did that ever happen? Even Hollywood would not make such a silly storyline in the most fantastical movie. Also notice how political the story is. What a wonderful manipulation to ingrain in our psyche all those layers of fear, shame, guilt, and above all the destruction of our own nature, sexuality, and sacred union between both polarities, the masculine and the feminine. This story, which starts us off in the journey of the biblical show, immediately makes a man and woman enemies. It makes a woman someone not to be trusted in, someone who should be shamed, and a man as someone to fear and respect. Basically, men are superior to a woman, and God is superior to all of us, but God is a man, so men are cool. They are safe and will be the voice of God from now on. Wow, just wow. In the Bible, there is no description of clear mention of the goddess. Ashera is mentioned in the Bible 40 times, but not as a goddess, not in a positive light either. She is depicted as some sort of a usually wooden pole or a piece on an altar with an image, a thing which was back then forbidden, to make any image or altar or statue and only worship the old man in the sky, Yahweh. Also in the later English translation, King James Bible, the name Ashera is not written at all. She is referred to and translated to groves of trees. So you can see why her image, along with her name, has been forgotten from our minds and our hearts for too long. But she cannot be deleted from our hearts and soul because the goddess is us. The goddess is nature. She is sacred union. She is life. Ashera appears in the ancient text, the queen, goddess alongside El, the God. He became Yahweh later on, Yehovah. And when this new image of the male, only God, appeared, all the trees and temples and memory of the goddess were destroyed. Ashera was worshipped as the mother goddess, seen as the queen of heaven, the co-partner of the god. They were seen as a team, mother and father, worshipped daily by people all around the world in different names. But in the land of Israel and around it, she was called Ashera. Note, the sisters of the temple tell me that this thousands of years of worshipping Ashera happened long after the temple itself was here on our dimension. And you can read more of that in the book Symbols of Sex Magic. I myself do not quite understand the timeline because I suppose it is not an actual linear one-dimensional timeline as we are used to and our human mind can grasp. The temple, in many ways, is still here on the planet in a different frequency and dimension, reaching out through this channel, me, Luna Aura, and bringing the knowledge in the best way for humans to use it. Now, this is a very important point, and some of you may not want to believe it. You do not have to believe anything. I urge you to do your own research, in fact. But Yahweh was also known as Enlil in the ancient Sumerian tablets. He realized the power that human beings have. And when I say he, I mean not just this God in the sky that they have portrayed him to be, but it is a sort of a group of entities. It is the shadow masculine that I always speak about. It is that energy. So he realized the powers that humans had, and certain entities have altered our DNA, like literally created a genetic modification of our DNA. This is not only reducing our lifespan at that point, makes us live less time, but it made us forget. It made us forget memories in the cells of our DNA. And people were divided because of new languages, and people basically have been divided into different sections of the world. New languages have been created. There was a destruction, of course, like we said before, of the sexuality and the union of the masculine and feminine, which was the first thing that really destroyed us all. And basically we became enemies of each other instead of really looking at who the real enemy is, which is the dark masculine force. And then consuming animals also, again, I repeat this all the time because it's vital. Consuming animals became an everyday thing for humanity. And then wars between separate groups began. But the thing is, you cannot delete our cellular memories. The human DNA is extremely powerful. So all our memories are coming back right now. If your vessel is pure and clean and ready to receive it. This is why I urge people to really be conscious about their sexual energy and about what they're consuming inside their body, inside your vessel of light. If you want to receive your full capacity of cellular memory and powers again, you must protect your vessel. So, going back to Ashera. Altars of Ashera were still found in the temples around the world. In a temple of Ashera, there was always a representation of the mother and the father god. It was symbolic of a union, of a partnership, equality and respect. Even though the goddess was always known to be more honored and sacred because she is the source of life itself, she is the bringer of life, and she is the birther of all life. But the feminine aspect of God was removed and destroyed and even demonized later when it couldn't be destroyed fully. How different our world would have been if the goddess was still honored alongside with the god. King Solomon had altars for Ashera, not because he actually respected the feminine, but because he needed to use her power for his creations. You can read more about the truth about Solomon and what he did in his name with dark magic according to the channelings of the Sisters of the Temple in the book Symbols of Sex Magic. In ancient texts, any mention of God or Yahweh was followed by the name Ashera, his consort. Later on, the name Ashera was referred to as a pole, a literal pole that the image of the goddess was carved on. But that word itself, her name Ashera, wasn't her name anymore. It was spoken to mention the actual phallic representation, a pole, a statue, an object. In the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, again, she's referred to 40 times, but as an object. And so that is why even I, myself, Luna Ora, growing up in Israel, reading this word in the Bible as a child, I came to see this name as a blasphemous or cult object, which people made monstrous statues for. It is important to note that in this time, once her image was reduced to this phallic statue, they began with the practice of animal sacrifice in her name, which was forbidden, according to the Sisters of the Temple, in the time of the Ashera worship. No killing or shedding of any blood was a practice in those days. Only when her temple was destroyed and animal sacrifice became a natural way of living, as well as ingrained in history books today, by the way. History can be changed because it's his story, which have been distorted. So remember, history, again, can be changed and manipulated in any time for any agenda. It is amazing how sophisticated this destruction of not only the image of Ashera, her sacred trees and her temples, but of her symbol and even her name itself that has been transformed. Humans later sacrificed children in her name as well, and performed sexual ritual of an extremely low frequency and awareness using her name. As a goddess of fertility, as an excuse to rape and use sex as they wish. This is something still done today, of course, unfortunately, as the sacredness has been forgotten from our lives as a collective. The sisters explained to me that it took many years to remove the image of the goddess from the minds of humans. And so it began by showing her as Yahweh's consort, the feminine beside him, demoting her, in a way, from being equal to him in small steps to so that her image could slowly be changed until finally removed completely, as we see today. She was removed from most Hebrew texts and all Christian texts and other religions that came after and continue to degrade the image of the feminine and women more and more. In the few depictions that were found of her, Ashera is seen standing on lions and holding snakes in her hand. A clear symbolism of her sexual power and life force, the Kundalini life force, her connection to the temple of Isis and Lilith, of which all sisters are connected to, the feline family, by the way. This is a secret my sex priestesses know about. A secret that basically every woman that holds the light codes of a sex priestess is highly connected to the feline animal and spirit animal energy. Ashera is also connected to the tree of life. She was depicted as a tree and had many sacred trees which were cut down by the dark masculine forces for the years that brought the deletion of her image. The tree of life is what not only gives life, but holds all light codes and high wisdom, which was kept by secret societies and also by Kabbalah, though it definitely lost its true original power, that of the mother goddess. The most important code in all of the knowledge that they are holding. Only now, where the image and memory of the Divine Mother is returning, can we actually receive the fullness of the light codes and information and use it with a deep womb wisdom we all hold. And most importantly, the love of the Mother, which we lost as a collective as well. In the time of Ashera, women were priestesses and did work at the temples just as much as men. Even more than men, in fact. Again, this is a different timeline than the temple of Isis and Lilith. In the sex temples, only women were the priestesses and men were the consorts and assistants who served the temple and the priestesses themselves. The priestesses gave their life to their service as well as the men who served them. The idea today that only men serve the God and are the voice of God, the direct channels to God, is a ridiculous lie created by the dark masculine forces later on. We know it is a false one because it is an idea that had to use force and fear tactics and wasn't received naturally by the people. Only now, because it has been programmed and ingrained in the human psyche for so long, and even today, it must still use the fear tactic to keep its control and power over humans' mind. Slowly, the word priestess had been turned into a prostitute, and that word was also manipulated into something negative and dirty, while the original temple prostitution of the priestess was holy, it was sacred, and was done by both females and males, who were taught by the females. The irony in this story is that it takes all power from the goddess, who is the creator of nature, of the garden of all life. And not only does the man get to rule over the land and nature, but he gets to rule over her. This story is coded with such an evil message of neutralizing the feminine from all her power and significance, to bow her to God and his earthly representative, the man. In the Hebrew tradition, the woman is merely Ezer Kenegdo, basically meaning the male's assistants. Adam gave the name to his wife Eve, which is Chava in Hebrew. He gave her the name Chava, which literally translated today to a farm. And this was the closest name to depict what the woman was actually about. Vayikra Adam shem ishto Chava, ki hi hayta em kol chai. This means, and man called his wife Chava, for she was the mother of all that's alive. But in another translation means that the mother of all animals, which is of course the meaning that they took from it. But she is really the real goddess, the mother of all life. Let us not forget that this story, as well as the Hebrew Bible, obeys another clear message to our psyche, which is one nation above all. Whether it is the Hebrews, the chosen ones, or the white supremacy, or men ruling over women, this is an awfully distorted, manipulative concept, which now, with the rising of the goddess, the time where the mother is rising once again to our consciousness, is falling apart, and with it, all human shadow brought into light. In this image that the patriarchal society has forced us to believe in, there is no room for the divine feminine, and therefore no space for the sacred marriage, for the divine union. Ashera is also known as the sea goddess of the Middle East, and even has a city in Israel named after her, LILITH. She is also the goddess of trees and earth. She has been depicted with trees ever since the time of her worship, and as we mentioned earlier, in the Bible was carved and made with trees. By archaeological findings in Israel, many trees were sacred to Ashera. She is called in many ancient scriptures the tree of life, and is shown sitting on a tree as a sign of life and fertility. In other depictions, she is seen surrounded by deers, goats, and other animals which are sacred to her. As we said before, Chava, the image of the feminine that we know from the story of the Garden of Eden, she was the mother of all life, of all animals, of all living. That includes humans and, again, animals. Ashera and El, the god, had a beautiful union in the Ugarian tablets text that were found in Rosh Shamra. They tell the story of their love who birthed many children, gods and goddesses. One was the god of sunset, Shalem, and one was the god of sunrise, Shachar. From stories we can learn that Baal wasn't the actual son of El, but a stepson, so to speak. Baal is called Ben Dagon. She had another son who was called El Kochav, and also the son of Ashera. There were so many different ideas and versions of the story of Ashera and her worship, her children, El, etc. But the important concept to know now is that she was the symbolic image of the mother, the wife of El, the god, which later became the shadow masculine Yahweh. She was not even equal, but more honored than the god even, because she was known to be the source of life, the birther of all, the eternal womb. Stories can be changed, and books can be rewritten, but the image and symbol of her can never be forgotten, and so now she returns to our consciousness at the time we need her truly. A time we need the sacred union to be a part of our human experience again, as the great awakening is happening. The sacred sexual union, as well as living in sacredness with nature, is the only hope we have now. The mere knowledge of her name and who she actually was is a danger to the concept of all religions and the patriarchy. If religious Jewish people today, for example, knew that long ago they had all statues of Ashera in their homes and worshipped her along with the image of the Father God, they most likely won't even be able to grasp this concept, not to mention any other religion people and and any person who has a strong grasp of a soul male God that's ingrained in their psyche. Since the feminine cannot completely vanish because she is a part of all of us, her image had to be replaced, distorted, and demonized over and over again until she is so misunderstood and humans so disconnected from her consciously. For example, the church has been considered the bride of Christ. Polarity is the law of this universe, and placing the image of the male God is not possible without using the power of the feminine as well, which will appear in many ways, like calling the church the bride of Christ, giving it a feminine image. Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, for example, which are lower than Jesus, but have to be there to keep the balance in the story, so to speak, as well as the idea of the Shekhinah in Judaism, which is a huge in the Jewish faith, even though not quite understood or honored for what it actually is. When the image of the Father God, Yehovah, Yahweh, banished us from Eden and the tree of life, it disconnected us from the mother who is the tree of life, who is nature, pure divine feminine. And this destroyed almost all chance for a sacred union, because there is no sacred union without divine feminine or masculine. This is all to be seen as symbolic as well, symbols so deeply programmed in our psyche. Ashera is the queen of heaven, the wife of God originally, but suppressed throughout our history. This has been a deliberate and continuously calculated repression of the feminine, of the womb wisdom, and thus again of the sacred union, by the shadow masculine. On a physical and mental level, the destruction of the altar, temples, and all symbols of the mother, and this is affecting the psyche of humanity as a collective. This act mirrors the collective shadow we all have succumbed to. The return of the Queen of Heaven in our collective is happening now. We are all co-creators of this dream, and we share one mind. So this awakening is affecting us all. For some, it may be more apparent to their shadow aspect, if not healed and faced. And for others, it will be seen in their light, aware self, and will be experienced as a new life, a new creation, an awakening, versus an experience of destruction that will happen to those who have not faced their shadow and mirror self with their own feminine and masculine aspects. All that we see in our society is a reflection of this shift that's happening within ourselves. Integration and reunion of the sacred feminine aspect into our psyche. This is literally a union that is happening within our collective and individual levels. A union that will bring back the sacred sexual union between male and female. The sacred union will birth new souls that will help humanity be elevated and freed. It will bring the freedom of animals, humans, and nature, and it will bring back the honor and sacredness to nature, to our own bodies and spirit and each other. This is why the sacred union has been so suppressed and distorted for so long. We can feel this absence of motherly care in our collective, the lack of this deep, nurturing, unconditional aspect. People don't care about each other. People don't care about nature, about animals, and even themselves. This lack of divine feminine energy is very apparent for those who have the eyes to see it. Even in many women who are biological mothers, this divine feminine is lacking. This society doesn't teach women how to be a true, sacred, nurturing mother, as well as it doesn't teach and initiate boys into becoming divine men and becoming the protector, loving father that they can be. It destroys the pregnancy and birth experience, and also we can clearly see in our pop culture the disconnect and destruction of the family unit, and especially of the mother. Have you noticed again how many Disney movies start with a mother that dies, or both parents that die, Or in another case, the mother is an evil and destructive witch or a bad person. The shadow self is the sum of the parts of us that we have suppressed and denied. The parts of us that we have pushed to the shadows. The mirror self is the part of us that mirrors what we identify as. The Queen of Heaven is the collective of the mirror and shadow side of our collective. The suppression of the divine feminine that we have all felt. We must return this unity to our own selves as well as the collective, and we must do so with honor and sacredness. This is a huge task now to ask from humanity, especially from the state of consciousness we are at. But we have a chance if enough of us do this. This world has been living under the shadow of the toxic masculine for too long, where we spend all our resources on war while children are starving. A world where women are raped and humiliated while also manipulated into being a man's toy for entertainment. We must wake up. We must return to our sacredness and bring back sacred union. Shekinah. What is known in Hebrew as Shekhinah. The Shekhinah represents the divine feminine in the world of Sfirot, what is also known as the tree of life. In the true teachings of alchemy, the main purpose of the path or service to God, as it is in Kabbalah, which took its wisdom from alchemy and ancient magic, by the way, is to bring to a union between the masculine and feminine polarities of the divine. Shekhinah is the tenth Sphira and is the divine feminine. It is known as well as Malchut, kingdom. The sixth Sphira is Yesod and also Tiferet, which is masculine. These two Sphirot are seeking unity between them. So we have the feminine Sphirot and the masculine Sphirot, which are literally quite seeking to unite. L'shem yichud kodsha brichu v'shchinatea. This is a spell which is spoken often in the Jewish religion and Kabbalah, because it is written in many books. Of course, they will not see it as a spell, and most scholars or rabbis do not even understand the deep meaning of it, though very obvious and literal meaning that these words have. These words translate something like, for the sake of uniting the holy and his Shekhinah. This is literally speaking of a sacred sexual union. Sexual union. Its purpose is to return the harmony into the world, since the original union was destroyed by the sins of the people of Israel. The dark masculine, the demonic entities, or the shadow side, which are called Sitra Achra, which literally translates to the other side, the shadow side. Now, this is a very important point, and some of you may not want to believe it. You do not have to believe anything. I urge you to do your own research, in fact. But Yahweh was also known as Enlil in the ancient Sumerian tablets. He realized the power that human beings have. And when I say he, I mean not just this God in the sky that they have portrayed him to be, but it is a sort of a group of entities. It is the shadow masculine that I always speak about. It is that energy. So he realized the powers that humans had, and certain entities have altered our DNA, like literally created a genetic modification of our DNA. This is not only reducing our lifespan at that point, makes us live less time, but it made us forget. It made us forget memories in the cells of our DNA. And people were divided because of new languages, and people basically have been divided into different sections of the world. New languages have been created. There was a destruction, of course, like we said before, of the sexuality and the union of the masculine and feminine, which was the first thing that really destroyed us all. And basically we became enemies of each other instead of really looking at who the real enemy is, which is the dark masculine force. And then consuming animals also, again, I repeat this all the time because it's vital. Consuming animals became an everyday thing for humanity. and then wars between separate groups began. But the thing is, you cannot delete our cellular memories. The human DNA is extremely powerful. So all our memories are coming back right now. If your vessel is pure and clean and ready to receive it. This is why I urge people to really be conscious about their sexual energy and about what they're consuming inside their body, inside your vessel of light. If you want to receive your full capacity of cellular memory and powers again, you must protect your vessel. Now, I want to mention something about body movements during prayer. This is in the Jewish tradition. Even if you are not Jewish or religion, you may know or have seen how religious Jewish people pray. They rock their bodies constantly. And this body rocking has a deep meaning, which, again, the religious Jewish people do not even know. This is a translated quote from one of the biggest rabbis in history, the founder of the Hasidic movement of Judaism, Rabbi Baal Shem Tov. I will read it first in Hebrew. התפילה היא זיווג עם השכינה, וכמו שבתחילת הזיווג יש נענוע, כן צריך לנענע עצמו בתפילה בהתחלתה, ואחר כך יכול לעמוד כך בלא נענוע, ויהי דבוק להשכינה בדבקות גדול. ומכוח מה שמנענע עצמו יכול לבוא להתעוררות גדול, שיחשוב למה אני מתנענע את עצמי, כי מסתמה השכינה בוודאי עומדת לנגדי, ומכוח זה יבוא להתלהבות גדול. Now, it's very difficult to translate this, but I will do my best. And here's this translation in English. The prayer is a sexual union. The word sexual is not here, but we know that this is a sexual union with the Shekhinah. So you are basically uniting, sexually uniting, spiritually sexually uniting with light, with source, with the Divine Mother herself. And just like in the beginning of the sexual union, there is a shake, there is a movement. So must one shake or move himself in prayer at first, and then you can stand with no movement, for he is glued to the Shekhinah in great commitment. And because he can shake or move himself, he can come to great awakening. For he may think, why do I move myself? Because the Shekhinah must stand before me, and with this force he shall come to great excitement or burning. Again, it is not very easy to translate, but I am trying to do my best to bring you the meaning of these words. I truly hope that this gave you a little bit of inspiration or a little bit of a space to open your mind and consciousness to keep exploring this concept of Ashera and the Shekhinah and the Divine Mother yourself, to truly receive this information from the Divine Feminine aspect of our collective consciousness and to bring it back to union within yourself, to bring your Divine Masculine and Divine Feminine into sacred union within yourself so we can birth and create a better world, a world where it's truly free and loved and we are all safe and protected and we are home within ourselves, within each other, a home of sacredness. If you are interested in exploring more about the true teachings of sex magic from the temple of Isis and Lilith, please visit my website and read one of my books, Symbols of Sex Magic and Sex Magic Evolution. And I wish you all the best, brothers and sisters. Thank you for listening and having an open mind and heart. We are truly blessed to be a part of this amazing new world that is birthing right now and to witness all the magic that is coming back to our consciousness, all the light codes, all the truth, all the knowledge and true wisdom, and above all the love. Thank you.